I'm George Barnett. I was the last of the members connection of the builders. Both of them that I worked with here in this model are deceased at this point, and they kind of left me in charge. It was a bunch of old men, who, relatively speaking, who had been model train enthusiasts from the time, in most of their cases, as far as I could ever determine, since they were children. And they had, many of them had their own setups at home, but they also kind of liked the idea, and I'm not sure whose idea it was, to have a big one that they could all work on and operate. I asked that question and was given a serious instruction that model railroads are never finished. They may be at that point where they can be operated and they're operating, but they always have things that are left to do. They are never finished. So there's no answer for your question. They wanted to have a big operation that they could run like a real railroad. So each of these sections, you don't see it here, but that is on the wiring system where each place operates independently. And they can run trains in both directions on the same track. They can run trains by each other, passing tracks. They can pass a track going in the same direction even, as a real railroad does. So they set it up that it would operate like a real railroad, and they did, and it has met that criterion. The railroads came through Buena Vista, in part, they followed the tracks of the mules and the explorers and the people who were looking for gold and silver and wanted to get into the San Juan and the northern Rocky Mountain areas, virtually inaccessible from the eastern slope, except if they came through here. They could go up some gradual mountains and over the Continental Divide into the western side and then go north and south from wherever they landed over there. So Buena Vista was a gateway to transportation, and they also wanted to get to Leadville, which was a very, very big producer of gold and silver, and they wanted to get through over beyond Leadville to the Tennessee Pass area, where there also were mines and mining towns, some of which are now covered by water from the old Climax mine system, which wasn't a precious metal, but an important metal. They also wanted to get into the San Juan Mountains. That was difficult, and they wanted to get into the western slope of mountain areas like Aspen, and they couldn't get there except by very, very long and tedious journeys by mule. Leadville was a very, very big, important city and very, very wealthy. And it was a bit of a threat to the legislature, and they decided maybe they could reduce the threat of Lake County by reducing the size of the county. So they cut off part of the southern part of the county and formed a new county, which they named Chaffee County, after a politician of the time, and they made Granite this county seat. The people in Buena Vista were outraged. They didn't mind being cut off from Leadville. In fact, they kind of liked that idea. But that Granite would be the county seat, they just did not like that at all. So one night, they took some of the folks in Buena Vista, took a locomotive and a boxcar and went to Granite, stole all the county records, and brought them back to Buena Vista and said, "We are the county seat." And since the sheriff was in on that, no one really could do anything about it. So they became the county seat. They started building this building that we are in 1883, and it became the county seat soon after that. Court hearings were held on in this building. Midland came over from Colorado Springs into South Park, across South Park, and down Trout Creek Pass by a circuitous route to get to Buena Vista, and it came in on the other side of the river. Crossing the river was not something that they thought they could be able to do. They followed the river, couldn't even get to the river for the most part because the Rio Grande tracks were between where they came in and where the river was. So they had to stay somewhere on the other side of the river until they got to Granite, where they could branch off and come on either side of the river. Up till that point, there was no way they could do that. Over here are the tunnels. You can drive through those if you have an interest in that. They are, and you can see on the upper side, the lower part of the rail on top, the upper part of the tunnels have black marks across it. That's from the smoke of the locomotives. There's not much evidence on that road that you're actually driving on an old railroad bed, but you are. And you can go up quite a ways on the old Midland Railroad bed. Then you have to cross the river and come back to town because the road is blocked up there. However, if you want to be really resourceful and search for it, you can see where the Midland Railroad bed is all the way from there to Granite. And from Granite on, you can see it as well all the way into Leadville.